Well, today's episode is going to be with 5 different reviews. The first one's going to be from Japanese promotion GLEAT with G Pro Wrestling version 38 that recently took place on the 19th of November. Then after that, we continue on with more New Japan Pro Wrestling with the tournament World Tag League. I'm going to focus mostly on the league itself, not the non matches involving that. So I'm going to skip that for the time being. And of course, we got the NWA Powerrr. As you know, there's some interesting matches taking place. A non-title match for the national championship, and of course, the women's title. And AEW Dark with 7 stacked matches, and of course, NXT with, of course, we have the North American title on the line and various other things taking place. And plus, some interesting news updates that we definitely got to be talking about. What's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, let's begin with GLEAT with G Pro Wrestling version 38. This took place on the 19th. It opened up with Issei Onitsuka taking on Kato Ishida. Now, as you know, Ishida has been causing nothing but problems with the folks down there in GLEAT. I have to say, Onitsuka did everything in his power to try to keep him down, but Ishida, he's like determined to prove that he is there to stay and to dominate GLEAT. That's exactly what he's been doing. But he was able to pick up the win against Onitsuka when he applied the German suplex. But however, he after his win, he decided to look for another challenger, and that person is member of 60 Seconds, the latest member, OJ Shiba. I have to say he did try to keep up with a past facer maneuver in order to try to pick up the win, but however, it was no avail until, of course, Ishida put him in an ankle lock and forced him to tap out. But however, Shiba's leader of 60 Seconds showed up, who still has some unfinished business with him. As you know, Izushi had his issues towards Ishida. Ishida targeted him since he first arrived. We don't know what's the purpose of that, but it seems interesting that that's what's been going on. Now, our next match, we have a very interesting tag match. We have Jun Toncho, also from 60 Seconds. He teams up with Minoru Tanaka to take on Black Generation, Flamita, and Utani. Now, these guys are originally from Mexico. Utani, he's a Japanese born, but he's been living in Mexico for a long time. He and Flamita formed the faction known as Black Generation. This is a statement. I'm not sure if they're going to be coming back and forth from Mexico to Japan, but Black Generation made a very big statement in this match against their opponents. It was, of course, a muscle buster power bomb that was applied onto Jun Toncho to give Black Generation the big win. Now, our next match we have is a UWF rules match. Once again, this is Maya Fukuda and versus Michiko Miyagi. Now, this has been going back and forth, but sooner or later, I have that distinct feeling that Maya Fukuda is going to snap, that she can't even beat her. Now, I think Fukuda felt that she has far more better karate experience than Michiko, but I have to say Michiko Miyagi has been with the company since day one, and I think it shows that she's not playing around, and I think that's a good thing. Now, our next match, we have Yu Isuka taking on Bulk Orchestra's Quiet Storm. This was a very interesting match, another like a David versus Goliath. you probably would have assumed that Isuka was going to win, but no, Quiet Storm, he's a very strong man. He was able to pull off a big lariat onto Izuka to give him the win. Now, our next match, we have El Lindaman teaming up with Kaz, Hayashi, and Shima, taking on Soma Watanabe and the members of 60 Seconds, um, Keishi Sato and Tetsuya Izushi. I have to say it was a pretty good match, determination. But in this one, it was the Meteora by Shima to Isushi that picked up the win. So basically, 60 Seconds need to pick up their game, but right now it's Shima, the leader of Black Hearts, taking the game. Now our next match is for the G Infinity Championships. We have Strong Arts, Shigeru Iri, and T-Hawk versus Masato Kamino and Takanori Ito, and taking on Bulk Orchestra, Check Shimatani, and Hayato Tomura. I have to say it was a pretty good match because it determined that Bulk Orchestra has always been proven many times over what a dominant team they have been. Strong Hearts are in that same predicament, but they've been at war with these two each others. But however, it was a roll up by Checo Mitana onto Erie that picked up the win. So they are now the current G Infinity champions, tag team champions actually, and I think this is going to be good. So there will be more of GLEAT very soon. But right now, let's move on to the next review, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Okay, so as you know, we began World Tag League and Super Junior Tag League. So we're just going to focus on those particular leagues for the time being. We're not going to worry about the matches before those. So I just want to get that out of the way so that way we can focus on that more. First match, we have, of course, Gabriel Kidd and Alex Coughlin taking on TMDK, Shane Hayes, and Mickey Knowles. I have to say, this was a pretty good match. I have to say, a lot of strength and strong style type in this, but this one did have that determination who's going to walk out as the winner. That kind of puts us in a bit of a stalemate. But however, it was the Thunder Valley onto Gabriel Kidd that allowed TMDK to pick up their first win. So I think this is a good start for them, but I'm not sure how the relationship between Coughlin and Kidd will continue on. We just got to wait and see from there. Next up, we got the Bullet Club consisting of Chase Owens and Balak Fale taking on Suzuki-gun members Lance Archer and Minoru Suzuki. This is one of those matches everybody were happy to see Lance Archer, but will Bullet Club try to withstand? Now, we do have two big individuals we're talking about, Fale and Lance Archer. That kind of sets it up, the whole thing. But in this particular case, it was the blackout by Lance Archer up to Chase Owens that allowed them to win, and I thought it was a pretty good timing for them to pick up the first win together. Next up, we got the House of Torture, Yujiro Takahashi and Evil taking on Bushiman, consisting of Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. It is no secret that these two teams hate each other completely. They have stumbled upon each other in tag matches, every time, over and over. But on a note, Bushiman does have a brand new gear. I think their gear is pretty sick. But in this type of matches, when it comes to Evil and Yujiro, right from there, Dick Togo was going to show up and try to give him a hand. Even Yo tried to help, but unfortunately, Sho showed up too. And then finally, Leo Rush. But it did give Bushiman with the Shoto onto Yujiro to pick up the win. So right now, they're sending a direct message to House of Torture. They're not messing around, and I think that's a good thing. Next up, Aussie Open versus B-Boop Tag Team, consisting of Toru Yano and Hiroshi Tanahashi. I think this was a pretty good fun match because we know Yano how he is. But in this particular case, that wasn't the case at all. It was, of course, Aussie Open with the Coriolis onto Yano that allowed them to win the match. Now, on a note here, there are those that are speculating that, of course, Aussie Open is one of the teams that most likely could win Tag League. So we'll see when that day comes. So we're not crossing that bridge yet until it happens. All we got to do is pay attention to their matches. Now, our main event, we have the United Empire consisting of Aaron Henare and Great-O-Khan taking on LIJ, Sonata, and Tetsuya Naito. Now, Naito, on the other hand, he's using this particular tournament as a way that hopefully, if they win Tag League, this will give them an opportunity to go to Wrestle Kingdom, which is something that Naito has been desiring for. He tried with the G1, he even tried with the IWGP United States title, now this. But one thing it was a pretty strong match. But the one thing that was dumb is, of course, Henare. People who know Sonata very well, he applies the infamous Paradise Lock. But every time they feel like they're not getting the right, they try to turn their attention to Milano Collection TA, who knows how to do this. But one thing they need to do is pay attention to what they're doing in the ring. But that's not the worst part. Great-O-Khan did it again. If you guys remember last time in Historic Crossover, Khan tried to miss Great Muta, but he instead accidentally missed Jeff Cobb. He did the same thing this time with Henare. That was his big mistake, but it took a Destino by Naito to pick up the win. I thought it was a good match, but I don't know what Great-O-Khan is trying to do. Was he thinking that he is going to be the one replacing Muta? I don't think so, because it did not work. I have to say is the worst thing for them. So basically, United Empire are not in a good place at this point, knowing that that one team already won one match and the other just lost. So I think that's pretty much it right now with them. I think it's time for NWA Powerrr. Okay, NWA Powerrr. Open up with a interview with no people around with Kyle Davis. He interviews with no aggression between these two men, Tom Latimer and EC3. Now, if you remember, EC3 crossed the line at hard times by saying something very distasteful to Tom Latimer about his wife. Now, that's a line you don't cross. However, no matter what EC3 was trying to say to him, it wasn't taking effect to Tom Latimer. However, the following moments, they ended up in a tag match with wrestlers from the Wildcat promotion. EC3 teamed up with Matt Lacey, while Tom Latimer teamed up with Danny Flamingo. It appears like people were like cheering for more Danny Flamingo, but I think what makes it interesting is how this ending went. Tom Latimer put Matt Lacey in a crossface, but EC3 did not do a thing. He just let Matt Lacey take the fall. Now it's still unclear what's the madness to EC3's head. We don't know, but I'm sure Tom Latimer is trying desperately not to get sucked into this control your narrative crap that he goes out. But we'll see what happens then. Now we do see a very interesting segment where question mark 2 seems like he is recruiting students to learn about karate. However, they were viciously attacked by two masked men and Aaron Stevens. Looks like this issues between question mark 2 and Aaron Stevens is far, far from over. Our next match is for the Wildcat Sports Revolution title between Nate Bradley and champion Chuck Divine. Now, I don't know much about these guys. Now, this promotion is based out of New Orleans. It has a bit of connection with the guys from Hawks RE. I thought it was very interesting seeing talent I never seen, but it seems like many fans were rooting for Nate Bradley to dethrone Chuck Divine, but Divine actually spiked Bradley with the DDT, and 1, 2, 3, he retained this title. Now, our next interview, we have May Valentine interviewing JTG and the Pope, talking about their epic victory they had at Hard Times. If you guys remember, they teamed up with Anthony Mayweather, who needed help to deal with Jack Stain and his little grease monkeys. And of course, they talked about how they had each other's backs back in the day. And I think that's important. Basically, you need to have people that you know you can count on, and I think that says it all. Now, this next match is a non-title match for the national heavyweight championship. We have Thrill Billy Cyrus Mason, who's been fired up since then, taking on Zion. Now, Zion, we all know he's a good, capable champion, but We're seeing more of the aggressive sides of Three Billy Cyrus, how he is improving so much that he is desire to prove everyone wrong about what he does. But however, unaware to him, the Scion used the ropes to ensure he does not win. And apparently, this was more of an act of desperation, not an act of trying to cheat. He knows that Drew Billy Cyrus is a potential threat to his title reign, so he did what it was necessary. But however, will Drew Billy Cyrus get his revenge? We will see when that day happens. Now, our final interview we have with May Valentine is pretty empowered. It turns out that Ella Envy will be facing against Natalia Markova, but however, for some odd reason, Kenzie Page has been signed to do referee. So they're being called into question about why is Kenzie Page involved as a ref. But they're denying, saying we're not going to cheat. We all know the truth. They're lying. So we'll just wait and see what happens next week. Now our main event is the NWA World Women's Championship between Jasmine Allure. If you guys ever seen her, mostly I seen her in um, Mission Pro Wrestling, Thunder Rosa's promotion, and of course we have that she takes on Camille. I have to say this match was amazing. I have to say Jasmine Allure really, really put her money where her mouth is against Camille. I think many people would have assumed it would have been Jasmine Allure to dethrone her, but it did not happen in that fashion. It only took one moment for um, Camille to ensure she can apply one move in order to take down Jasmine Allure once and for all, and that move turned out to be the spear. I thought it was a great match. I think it was good. I don't know how you're gonna top this one, but we know we can see that happen. So I think that's pretty much it with NWA Powerrr. Let's move on with AEW Dark. Okay, AEW Dark opened up with the varsity athletes consistent of Tony Nese and Josh uh, Woods, along with that Weasel, Smart Mark Sterling, to take on Dean Alexander and Rosario Grillo. Now you can actually guess that this match fell in favor of the varsity athletes in order for them to win by applying that double neck combination and the neckbreaker dominant combination, my bad. So that gave them a good victory for them. Now, our next match, we have Marina Shafir along with Vicky Guerrero taking on Willow Nightingale. Now, I thought this match was kind of interesting because uh, I did not, we don't know how this one was going to turn out with Marina Shafir. It was a pretty good one. Like, I think Marina Shafir put herself through the test, but however, it was the Dr. Bomb by Willow Nightingale that allowed her to win her match. Now, our next match, we have Wheeler Yuta taking on KM. Don't know who he is, but this one ended pretty interesting with the seatbelt. 1, 2, 3. Wheeler Yuta won the match. Next up, we got Jake Hager versus Bryce Donovan. This one ended with a with the what's it call it, the head, that little triangle headlock that he uses normally in order to pick up the win, which is kind of a very effective submission move, kind of like what is it that Taz called it? I forgot what he called it, but I'll figure that one out. Next up, we got Sky Blue versus Ty Mello. This match was pretty interesting, but however, one way or the other, Anna Jay shows up to ensure that the sports entertainers are the far more better supreme wrestlers than everybody else. But it did allow for Ty Mello to apply a submission move to Sky Blue to giving her the win. However, they decide to beat her down, but unaware to them, here comes Wilt Nightingale to save the day. So there is the possibility we could see Wilt Nightingale and Sky Blue team up and take on Anna Jay and Ty Mello. But I wouldn't be surprised if they win their match when they confront each other. Next up, we got Leon Ruffin taking on Roosh. Now this one was a very vicious ending with the bull's horn. That kind of ended pretty well. Now our next and our main event is the Trustbusters, Jeeves K, Ari Davari, and Sonny Kiss taking on the Dark Order, Evil Uno, Alex Reynolds, and John Silver. You probably can guess this one would end it with the pendulum bomb onto Jeeves, giving Dark Order the win. So it was a pretty straightforward event. We'll see how it goes next week. But right now, let's move on to our next and final review, NXT. Okay, NXT opened up with Toxic Attraction making their way. As you know, Mandy Rose putting herself out there saying that is now the longest reigning champion, but she said that she will be paying attention to the Iron Survivor match where they'll be declaring who will be challenging her for the NXT title. However, some people had a little problems with Toxic Attraction, and that is our current NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, Kaden Carter and Katana Chase. As you know, Gigi Dolan and JC Jane are trying desperately to regain what they lost because they believe they're on top of the game while everybody else is down there. But of course, it ended with a brawl between both sides, but Toxic Attraction had the numbers game. Now, as you know, with Chase U, Duke Hudson has somehow changed. Some people don't believe him that he did. First, it was Grayson Waller, who's also a felon Australian like him. He did not buy this whole thing, but Duke Hudson chose who he is. And of course, there was another moment where he was hanging out with the rest of the class, but Pretty Deadly once again decided to get in his face. And all of a sudden, ended up in a 2-on-1 scenario. But what happens later, Duke Hudson somehow ran all the way to the campus, tells Andre Chase, Professor Chase, that they got themselves a tag team match for the NXT titles. So basically, it was like a very amazing moment for them. So basically, they have to get their game plan going as soon as possible. Now, our opening match, we have Wendy Chu versus Cora Jade. As you know, Cora Jade has dissed everyone in the locker room, and that includes Wendy Chu. However, this match, Wendy Chu was about to cross the line, regardless of anything, but Cora Jade used Wendy Chu's beverage against her and splat it in her face. And of course, when Cora Jade had the very pleasure to make Wendy Chu cry. But don't think this is the end of it. This has happened before with Tiffany Stratton. And what happened then? She lost in the end. So if Cora Jade thinks that she can outsmart her, well, we'll see what happens because she's going to be a pain in the ass. Now, a lot of questions have been coming with Kiana James. Recently, we've been seeing that Kiana James is trying to buy the bar that belongs to Fallon Henny's family. However, they're saying that deal never went through, but according to James, it did. But she's not taking any crap from anybody, but saying that everything is true. But oh my God! Right as soon as Kiana James leaves, Javier Bernal shows up with the list of wrestlers that he wants to challenge. However, some wrestlers like Axiom, he's injured. Wrestlers who were injured. So basically, he was being an idiot. So basically, that's how it turns out. Now, our next match, this one's a very interesting one. We have Ivy Nile versus Kiana James. Now, Kiana James saying the brains are far more effective than bronze. Maybe so. But when it comes to Ivy Nile, she has the best technical aspect. That's how it works out. Now, there was a moment Kiana James was about to leave, but Fallon Henley, who still has an unsettled business dealing with her, decided to shove her back. But luckily, she ended up in the Dragon Sleeper by Ivy Nile, and she had no other choice but to tap out. But at the moment, Fallon Henley got into the face of Kiana James, tried to duke it out, and then, of course, it went in the back. But the Creed brothers, as you know, recently they've been not so pleased with the situation within their share. They decided to take it under the expense of Ivy Nile, and I think Ivy is starting to see that they're taking this too far. But we will see that response with in the share as soon as possible. Now, we do get the debut of Scripps taking on Guru Raj. Now, this was a very interesting. I didn't know who Scripps was. This was a masked wrestler who's African descent. I don't know much about it, but just to spoil alert, many fans are speculating that this could be Reggie. If you remember Reggie, he was a guy who was hanging out with Nia Jax, and then of course Dana Brooks. That sort of goes out its own way. I mean, I could visually see that, but I have to say, I don't know with this whole Scripps thing. I mean, very athletic, but I don't know if I can buy it. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Don't get me wrong, it was a pretty impressive match, but it's the character that kind of throws me off a little bit. But it was pretty good, not gonna lie. Excuse me. Now we do see the Schism doing their little promo, but it appears that they decided to do a little sacrifice with a guy who probably presumed he was going to join the Schism, but nope, he ended up through a table. I don't know what was that about, but it's kind of clear what Schism are up to. Now, our main event, as you know, is the North American Championship between Wesley and the former champion, Carmelo Hayes. Now, Trick Williams, who made it clear that Wesley is only going to be a champion only for 2 weeks. But Wesley decided to throw in a little bit of the mind games, try to play mind games with him, and I think it worked. It got under the skin of Trick Williams. Now, our next match, we have Zoe Starks, who we saw 2 weeks ago went to the dark side and decided to disrespect every athlete, and that is crude her opponent, Soruka. I have to say, Soruka really, really stepped up her game a little bit, but it wasn't enough until she was pinned by Zoe Starks, giving her the win. But it appears that Zoe Starks wanted to punish her more. Luckily for Soruka, Nikita Lyons shows up to try to deal with her, and as for Lyons, she just ran like the coward she is. Now, Blade and Inoue were trying to hang out with Von Wagner. As you know, Von Wagner came up short, taking on Braun Breaker. Now, Inoue and Malik decided to accept the fact that they did not win the tag titles, but they know they can bounce back. But Von Wagner would be caught dead dealing with those guys. But he decided to beat the crap out of them. But you can tell from a distance, here comes Odyssey Jones, who will deal with Von Wagner hopefully next week. Now to our NXT Tag Team Titles match, we have Andre Chase and Duke Hudson taking on Pretty Deadly. The match was pretty good. It was a very interesting storyline. Now, the only obvious question is, I kind of figured this match was going to fall in the favor of Pretty Deadly because they're trying to establish as a strong tag team. As for Andre Chase and Duke Hudson, they can get along great. So, but you know how Pretty Deadly are a very impressive tag team. So they applied the spilled book onto Andre Chase. But as they say, go back to the drawing board. They probably will get another opportunity when it arises. Now for our main event is for the North American title. We have Carmelo Hayes versus Wesley. This match, I have to say, was pretty good. It showed like, okay, Wesley has to prove that he's not gonna be losing the title in a way that Williams and Hayes believe. But luckily, Wesley took every ounce of what he was doing on him, but he applied a very interesting driver onto Mello to retain the title. But however, something weird happened. Something happened right in the gorilla position. No one knows what until we saw Dijak. We know him as Dominik Dijakovic, basically setting his brand of justice and attacks Wesley. It wouldn't be surprising that maybe he'll be gunning for him for the NXT North American title. So that is one thing we could see, or this is something else. We were wondering where was Dijak gonna make it. Excuse me, his reappearance, but looks like it's been answered. So I think that's pretty much it right now with NXT. With all the reviews, it's time for news updates. Okay, for our news updates, let's begin. Wrestling Revolver has announced for two matches that will be taking place for their last pay per view of the year season finale. The first one was announced, it's going to be for the Revolver World Championship. JT Dunn will be putting his title on the line against Trey Miguel, the current X Division champion. And second of all, a big surprise has been announced for a big time New Japan Pro Wrestling star, and that is, of course, Kenta will be making his debut at Wrestling Revolver. This is huge news to hear, but it was already announced now that his opponent will be none other than Speedball Mike Bailey. This is going to be a very interesting matchup between those two. Now, speaking of Mike Bailey, Warrior Wrestling announced for their upcoming event 26 on the 17th of December, we're going to have Mike Bailey taking on Zachary Wentz. I have to say that's going to be also another good match. Now, if anybody is big fans of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, LA-based promotion, it's just announced for their upcoming tournament, the Battle of Los Angeles, or as we call it, BOLA. They just announced for their first entrant in the tournament, and that is, of course, none other than current British wrestler Michael Oku has been announced. I'm so excited. I think this is going to be his first time being there. It's going to be killer for him. Now, for our GCW updates, we only have one thing going on. It was announced for their 56 nights, which is going to take place on New Year's Day, on January 1st, 2023. There's going to bring in the return of the Do or Die Rumble. Now, I don't know much about this one, but from what I understanding, whoever wins this Rumble will get an opportunity for the GCW World Title. Now, House of Glory has announced for their upcoming pay-per-view in Revelations on the 17th of December for a title match. This one's going to be for the women's title. We have the Ultraviolet, our current champion, taking on Masha Slamovich. That's going to be a very interesting matchup to look at. Now, Dramatic DDT, which is like a news outlet for DDT fans out there, they announced that Raku from Tokyo Issue Pro has tested positive for COVID-19. However, she is unable to participate for the 27th of November event in Corkin Hall. She was supposed to be teaming up with Yuki Inoue for the Princess Tag Team titles. However, they found her a replacement, which is, of course, Pam Adejuku. That's going to be a very interesting development. As you know, I know that Raku and Yuki Inoue have recently been teaming up a lot. I've been following on that with the Tokyo Issue Pro Wrestling events. So let's see how this works out for Yuki. Now, the time has happened. We've been waiting for a while now. It appears the Never Openweight Championship will be on the line in Sendai on the 14th of December. It's going to be Hikuleo, our challenger, taking on Carl Anderson. Now, we don't know how long this was taking, but I'm just glad it happened. So we're going to see that match take place. So there's that. Now, our final update. This one's a huge news. This was appeared today on the latest NOAH event. Pro Wrestling Noah has announced that Darby Allin will be making his way to Pro Wrestling Noah to participate in the final match of the Great Muta, teaming up with Sting and the Great Muta. So I think this is going to be awesome. This is going to take place at the Yokohama Arena on the 22nd of January of 2023. So the opponents have not been announced yet, but I'll be hopefully finding out who would that be soon enough. I think that's pretty much it right now. So I'll see you guys. So I'll say right now, let's just call it a day. Well, hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, we got AEW Dynamite. This is going to be an interesting event. As you know, you may have heard where they're going to be heading. They'll be heading in Chicago. A lot of talk has been made. But let's not forget, this is just a wrestling show. Let's just enjoy it. But we're also going to be reviewing day 3 of the World Tag League, Super Junior Tag League. But as I mentioned before, I'm only going to focus on the Tag League matches. The other ones, I'm not going to focus on that. Haven't decided there's any other ones that I'm going to be reviewing. I know I haven't seen the latest GCW event, Aura. That's one is still on the list. But from there on, we'll just move on from there. So I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.